So my background, I spent the bulk of my career at a company named Life Technologies, which is the largest life science research company in the world. And I left there, and about 5 years later, 5 or 6 years later, I formed this company. And the reason we formed the company was that there's been a tremendous amount of work that has been done, discoveries have been done with the Human Genome Project, with a number of understandings about immunology and proteomics, which is how the body makes proteins. And this understanding has allowed the birthing of a new way of thinking about developing medicines using cells and developing medicines using DNA. And what I'm going to talk about today is our role in this new exciting area and educate you and get your input on ways that this is really going to change the way people are treated in the future by using cells. So we have a group at MaxCyte. There's 30 of us. 2/3 of the group have advanced degrees, 1/3 have PhDs. And we're regarded as an expert in the area of cellular engineering. And what that means is we can go in and change a cell to do a number of different things, and I'll talk about that. We have a proprietary technology that we invented and we've developed, heavily patented around the globe. And what we're doing is we're able to very reliably and very efficiently engineer cells and do it for industrial purposes and do it for clinical purposes. And there really isn't any other group in the world that can do that. So we're the first group to be able to do this at this kind of scale. We have a client base. We built a client base of more than 50 of the leading biopharmaceutical companies in the world. So we sell and we license our technology to commercial enterprises. We don't sell to universities. These are directly to the big pharma companies. And we have 9 of the top 10 big pharmas in the globe are our customers. The top 3 companies in Japan use MaxCyte's technology. We also license the technology to companies who are developing cell-based therapies. And this is where you take cells from a patient, you engineer the cells, you turn them into a drug, and you return them back to a patient. A brand new, exciting area of science. And we license our technology to companies to do that. And we get paid for that license, and we give them certain rights as they develop new products. And we have a number of these. And these tend to be, they include royalties, they include milestones, upfront payments. It's very broad, this whole area of cell-based therapies. People are using it to develop, among these 35 programs, treatments for cancer, both blood cancers and solid cancers, infectious diseases, including HIV, pandemic flu, some biohazard type of applications, and a kind of a new area, which is inherited genetic disease, where you can actually treat a patient who has inherited genetic disease by doing something called gene editing, which we'll talk about. We're also developing a proprietary way of redirecting the immune cells in a patient. It's called immuno-oncology, and this is a really hot area right now. And this is because cancer cells grow unchecked in your body because your immune system doesn't recognize them as foreign. They kind of cloak themselves. And what scientists have been able to do recently is to re-educate those cells by inserting a molecule so it recognizes that cancer cell as being foreign, and then the immune system goes after and kills that cell. This is a very, very powerful drug. The cells in your body are much more powerful than any drug you could ever imagine designing. And so what we're doing is we're harnessing the power of cells to treat disease. We just had a successful AIM offering in the first quarter of this year. And we have our new ticker symbol. This is our first retail presentation. We have a number of blue chip investors, BlackRock, Legal & General, River Mercantile, a number of EIS, VCT investors. So we're just beginning to introduce the company to outside of that original group that invested in the company. So we raised 10 million pounds on AIM, and we went public at 70p. The current price of the shares are 84p. Pam Bureau-Gordon, who took us public, Julie Simmons, just wrote up on us and said that her target was 180p for the shares. And we had just released this morning our first half revenues of $5.5 million. This is a 30% increase over the same period in 2015. And this is our third 6-month period where we've increased our revenues by 30% over the prior period. So 18 months of growth at 30%, and we have about a 3-year growth of over 27% on a compounded annual growth rate basis. So it's a fast-growing company. And what's really exciting for us is our gross margins. Our gross margins for this business are approaching 90%, which is a great asset for us, allows us to do a lot of different things, but it also shows the value that we have for the products that we sell. Our operating expenses increased, of course. I want to highlight these 3 things because they have to be taken together. This is an investment in a new platform. I'll talk about that, immuno-oncology. We also had new expenses because we're a public company. If you take away those 2 pieces, we actually reduced our loss a little bit from about $900,000 to $800,000. So the business is starting to further improve its basic operations. Cash balance at the end of the first half were $12.2 million. And we just recently restructured a debt facility that we had, pushing out interest only by 2 years and also the maturity date by 2 years. So the business model is in 3 steps. The first step is that we sell our instruments to big pharma companies. And they acquire the instruments, and every time they use the instrument, they have to use a single-use disposable. So it's the razor blade model. And they can't use the system without buying a disposable. So this is where we sell our systems to 9 of the top 10 pharmas. And the sale of those processing assemblies, the razor blade, if you will, is an ongoing business for us. It's one of the nicest things I've ever been associated with. When you get an email in the morning, there's orders there for a processing assembly at 90% margin. It's a really nice business to have. And this business is growing at 30% year over year. The second business we have, the second part of the business, and all this is the same technology. It's all the same instrumentation. It's just a different application for what we do. The same technology is also used in cellular therapy, and this is where patient cells are taken, they're engineered, and I'll go through that, and they're returned back to the patient. In this case, we license the technology, we license the instruments to our potential partners, and they pay us. They pay us for preclinical research, they pay us in the clinic, and eventually they become commercial. And as our instrument becomes an integral part of that product, we are in a great position to negotiate a commercial deal with them, because every patient that's being treated will need to use our instrument and will need to use our single-use disposable. So it has an incredibly high value in this business. And thirdly, we're working with some of the top research groups in the world to develop a really breakthrough technology that will allow you to take cells from a patient at the hospital, engineer those cells within several hours, and then return them back to the patient. And our first indication was ovarian cancer. And this business model is not to become a product company, it's to prove the platform, so we can license the platform to big pharma companies, because we think that's going to be a very, very important development for the company and for the industry and for patients. And we're doing this work at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, one of the top the premier hospitals around the globe. So this technology is called flow electroporation. And so this is the instrument, and this is our proprietary technology. And what we're doing here is we're taking cells, and we take cells and we put them in here, and we add the molecule we want to put into the cell. And those molecules could be DNA, RNA, anything that would change the cell, and I'll explain why that's important. We then run the cell through a very precise, highly controlled proprietary electric field that opens up the cell membrane and puts the molecule that you want to get into the cell. And the way this works, it's if you think about a vertical curtain, vertical blinds, where you walk through, the vertical blinds are the cell wall, and you're the molecule, so you walk through the vertical blinds and they close right behind you. That's what we do with these cells. It happens extraordinarily quickly in huge volumes, and we do it sterilely. and no one else can do what we can do. And so this is a brand new technology that we introduced just about 5 or 6 years ago. And we'd be able to build this business up to over $10 million a year now at those kind of margins. So we can process any molecule in any cell, any scale. And why do you want to do that? Well, these are kind of a cartoon of the cells we work with. And the center kind of illustrates how complicated these cells are. I mean, these cells are every possible thing that a cell does, all of us do, is determined by how these cells work in our body. We have billions of them, either blood cells or skin cells or liver cells or whatever. And we principally focus on blood cells because they're relatively easy to get from a patient. And we can do many things with these. And these are things that our customers do with our technology. So again, we ship the instrument, we ship the disposable, and our customers do the work. And what they're doing is they use cells to discover drugs. So you can take a cell, you can manipulate that cell so it lights up if a certain molecule hits it. You can actually make the cell change from a blood cell to a bone cell by putting a molecule in. It's really fascinating. You can put a molecule into a cell to produce a protein. So most of the biologics that you've read about, that you know about, Enbrel or all these different new biologics are made with cells. They put molecules into the cell then expresses a protein. You can also redirect a cancer cell. I talked about that earlier. So again, your immune system doesn't recognize those cancer cells as foreign, and what you can do is re-educate that cell, and I'll talk about that. So it goes after the cancer cell and kills it. And finally, you can edit and correct genes in cells. And many of you may have heard about a technology called CRISPR. It's a really hot area in science. And this is where you can load a molecule into the cell. It finds the gene it's looking for and kicks it out. And when they kick it out, it can treat a patient. And I don't quite understand how it works because it's so fascinating, but it works. It's an incredible technology. But we're in the center of all this, and because what we do is we use our technology, they use our technology to deliver the molecule into the cell. That's what we're great at. We know how to get stuff into a cell, and we know how to get a lot of stuff into cells and do it sterilely and very consistently. That's our expertise. That's what we do, and that's the only thing that we do. And we do it with top companies. And so here's some examples of the companies we work with. We work with AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Novartis, and they use our technology to discover new small molecule drugs for neurological disease, for pain, for diabetes treatments. And the reason they use that is because we can provide them an alternative to animal models, and we can actually help them become much more productive in their research of discovering small molecules. We also work in biologics. This is where you're either producing a vaccine or you're producing a protein. And again, we work with the top companies, Genentech, Novartis, Roche. And we also work with a number of smaller startup companies that really do need an edge against the bigger companies. And so they come to us, they acquire our technology, and they use it for production of proteins and development of proteins. And finally, in cell therapy, these are companies that use our technology because they want to increase the potency of the cell. They want to redirect that cell for whatever reason. And we work with really the top names. In the CRISPR area, there's 3 companies. One is CRISPR that just went public this past week. The second is Editas that went public about 6 months ago. And the third is Intellia, which isn't yet public. All of them have extensive relationships with big pharma, Vertex, Bayer, Celgene, Novartis. They're all our clients. They all use our technology to put those CRISPR molecules into the cell. Now, they're all early stage. They're all just before the clinic. But they have a combined market cap, those 2 companies, of well in excess of $1 billion. They've been in business for less than 3 years. It's a very, very hot area. And we're in the center of that. So let me talk a little bit about each of these sectors. The first is the drug discovery. We sell the instruments for $110,000 a piece on average. We also sell these disposables. And again, it's a razor blade, and both the razor and the razor blade both have about 90% margins. So we think it's a pretty attractive business. And we also can scale up with these companies. They use our technology for the production of vaccines. We have one group that uses our technology to produce a vaccine for the Ebola virus. Another one is using it for Zika. So these are companies that need to produce proteins fast on a large scale. And again, we sell the instrument. We have really a low risk model with doing this. And we have over 100 instruments in the field, and we think there's a significant untapped market. This market, it's called transfection, which is getting a molecule in the cell, is close to $1 billion a year. For us, it's a pretty good sized market. And we've got a small niche that we've been developing, and we expect to obviously expand that through the work that we're doing. There's also a growing recurring revenue, because every time we ship an instrument that we charge for, we don't give anything away, and they use it, they need to order the disposable. So there's a nice recurring revenue element of this business. The second is in cell therapy partnering, and this is where companies are using our technology to engineer a cell to go back into the patient. We have over 35 therapeutic programs currently. So these are 35 different programs with partners that are developing new therapies based on cells. And those new therapies include treatments for HIV, they include treatments for leukemia, solid tumors, pulmonary hypertension, which is a cardiopulmonary disease. So this is, we view MaxCyte as an option on the cell therapy field. I mean, we're like the BASF, if you will, of this business. We don't actually make the drugs, we just make them better, and we want to be involved in all the different groups that we possibly can. So when we license the technology, we license the technology for a very specific use on a non-exclusive basis. So that's and we can program the instrument that we ship to them that can be only used for the cell that they've licensed to use the technology for. So it's a very controllable business model. And we charge our customers between $150,000 per instrument per year, preclinical, and once they get in the clinic, it's $250,000 per instrument per year. And every time they treat a patient, it's between $1,000 and $1,500. So it's a very interesting business proposition. And just to give you a sense of the amount of financing, I got to update this, but in 2015, there was over $11.5 billion invested in the cell therapy market, $11.5 billion. And now you're also seeing a number of these big pharma companies coming in and staking their claim because they see the future in this. The last part of this, the last element is something called karma. And karma is a way of, again, re-educating the immune system to treat a patient. And you may have heard of CAR T cells. These are CAR T19. A number of companies like Celgene, Kite, Juno, Novartis all have these CAR-19 programs that they're pushing. And what this is what they're doing is they take a T cell, which is one of your white cells that kills anything, kills bacteria, it also kills cancer cells. And what they do is they put a molecule in, and that molecule, in this case they use a virus because we want to do it for long-term expression. And that T cell has a molecule on the outside of it that recognizes an antigen, and an antigen is a little protein on every cancer cell. And every cancer cell has every cancer type has a different protein. So if you have leukemia, you have a CD19 marker on those cells. And what they do is they re-educate that T cell to take out any cell that expresses that CD19. And it is phenomenally efficacious. They've had over 200 patients, and these are late-stage patients, and they're getting response rates of 60, 70, and 80%. So they can manage leukemia now as a chronic disease versus what it was before. Fascinating technology. And it's brought in a lot of investment. I showed close to $10 billion in the last couple of years. And also big bets by big pharma. The issue is that it's limited to blood cancers. You can't use it for solid tumors because the antigens that are expressed on solid tumors also express on heart and lung, and you can't manage that toxicity. So patients who have tried to use this technology have died. And it's also very expensive and takes a long time to produce the drug. The drug can take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to produce. And Novartis said it's going to cost probably around $350,000 per treatment for a patient. So it's going to be not within the reach of many patients, and many countries won't be able to actually bring this technology in. So we have been involved, MaxCyte has been involved by using our technology to load something called messenger RNA into cells to express a CAR molecule. And messenger RNA doesn't last forever. It only lasts for about 3 or 4 days. And then that T cell loses the CAR. And so after it loses the CAR, it can't kill any cells at that point. So what we've been doing is working with University of Pennsylvania, National University of Singapore. Again, they license our technology. They pay us $250,000 per instrument per year to do the work in their facility, so it's no risk to us. And they've dosed over 20 patients, and they have found that there's hints of efficacy. It's it's not a slam dunk, but there's no safety issues, which is a big thing. And what we did, we have a proprietary technology that we developed using our technology. So this takes about 2 weeks to prepare the cells. In the case of Karma, we can do this in a day. In an entire day at a hospital, you can take the cell from the patient, load them with our technology, put messenger RNA in, express the protein, and give it back. And because it only lasts for a short period of time, we can start going after solid tumors, which is frankly the holy grail of cancer treatment. Solid tumors represent 90% of the cancer market. Blood cancers are about 10%. And so what we want to do with this is we raised the money already in AIM. We raised 10 million pounds. 2/3 of that money is going to be focused on us supporting a clinical trial at Johns Hopkins. And our first clinical trial will be for platinum-resistant ovarian cancer, a horrible disease. These are patients that have gone through 7, 8 different courses of therapy. The relapse time is about 6 months, so there'll be a relatively quick readout. We've finished up all the preclinical work. We'll be publishing that in the next 6 months or so. And then we've given guidance to the market that we'll be in the clinic treating patients in the middle of 2017. We have enough cash to support a trial of 30 ovarian cancer patients. And we believe between that now and then, we'll have enough data to entice a big pharma company to want to do a major deal with us. So let me just wrap up with one financial slide. We cut, this is truncated, so this isn't 0, it starts at 5. But it gives you a sense, this is the trailing 12-month revenues for the company. And again, over the last 3 6-month periods, we've grown the business by 30%. Over the last 3 years, we've grown the business by over 27%. And we think, in addition to that sort of growth, and we've given guidance to the market that we expect to continue that sort of growth, we also have the opportunity to do these bigger commercial deals with biopharmaceutical companies. And that's one of the major reasons for coming to AIM, so that we could actually get more known on a global basis and have some money that we could stand up with companies and negotiate with these big pharma companies. So the guidance we gave this morning to our analysts was that we continue to trade in line with our full-year expectations. We're focusing on top-line revenue and adoption of the technology. We just doubled our sales force since AIM. So in the last 3 months, we're now over a dozen sales and field applications people. A number of the companies that are large multinational companies in this space, those employees have come to work for us. Just had 2 customers join us recently, which we're pretty excited about. We also just announced setting up a distribution network in Asia, China, Korea, Japan, and Singapore and India, and also focusing on our Karma platform at Hopkins. And invest, of course, in new product applications and new product development. So with that, I think I'm ready for some questions, right? Sorry.
Time for a couple of questions. Anybody got any questions at all?
Yes, sir.
To a certain extent, are you competing with some of the hospitals? You're supplying some of the product, but for instance, Stanford does a lot of this too. Would you compete with Stanford? Or
no, absolutely not. They would be
supply to them. And secondly, how long does it take to get through the FDA to get your products into the market?
Yeah, so we won't actually be doing the products. What's that?
Is there hope for all of us in the audience to take advantage of your products in due course?
Oh yeah. So the simple answer is it depends on how serious the disease is, because you can get a fast track. Even that's going to probably take 2 or 3 years. If it's like these CAR T therapies are moving around at breakneck speeds at 3 years. Most of these are going to take 5 to 7 years to get approval. As they become less urgent in FDA and other regulatory agencies, because you're always balancing risk and benefit. And if they don't see a huge benefit against a really big unmet need, it's going to take 5 or 7 years. We think we don't want to do that. That's someone else does that. That's what Novartis and GSK do. They're really good at that stuff. We want to give them a product concept. We want to give them all the tools for them to make the investments, the large investments in the clinical development work. Yes, sir.
You mentioned disposables. What exactly are they, and how much do you charge for them?
Sure. So disposables, if you think about a cassette deck and a cassette player, if few of you are, I remember them. So we sell the cassette. So the cassette is a processing assembly. It's a sterile closed system. So you put the cells in one end and the molecule you want to put into the cell, you snap the cassette in, and the system does the electronics and moves it through. We sell the systems, the processing assemblies, for between $300 a piece up to $1,500 a piece. So a large-scale system is $1,500, and we also have one larger scale system we sell the disposable for $10,000 a run. So these have to be very high-value applications. That's why we focus on biopharmaceutical companies, drug discovery, and therapeutic applications of technology. It's a high-end product.
Thank you very much, Doug.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.